So let's talk about the how for a second. If you're getting stuck about the how, I don't know how to do. How do I feel the ground?
I've gotten tripped up by that before.
Yeah. How do I, process this stuff? I can't let go and just allow my body to process. What's happening there is you're really having issues with assumptions.
Yeah. And first of all, don't use the word can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of parents come to us and go, my kid can't focus. I go, really? What does he do when he gets home? Oh, he plays Minecraft for 5 hours. Does he ever take a break? No, he can focus just fine.
Yeah, selective focus.
Can't. It's hardly ever it's a can't. It's I'm scared to.
Yeah.
If it's an I don't know, it's I'm uncomfortable to.
It's a very strong won't.
I'm trying to avoid this.
Yeah, it's a very strong won't because they're scared of it.
Yeah, and again, there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
by
there's
any
not.
means. But what's happening is you're just having some assumptions. Turn your focus toward the reasons. This usually happens in like a split second. Like I'll say do this, and then you'll run through a simulation of what's going to happen if you do this. You'll come up with several assumptions why you shouldn't, and then you'll say, I can't, I don't know how, I don't want to, etc., and you'll leave it at that. And this all happens mainly unconsciously. But if you can get to a place where you are really focusing on those assumptions, what happens is then you can start to break them apart. So here's what you're going to do. I mean, generally, it's the assumptions, but here's what you want to do. So if you encounter a how problem, first you want to make sure, do I know the logistical how? This is where Google is good. This is where class is good. This is where the Q&A sessions are good. This is where our Facebook group is good. Make sure you know the actual mechanical steps to do the thing.
Yes.
Feeling the ground. Do you know how to feel things? Is it something you even have to try, or is it just you to do? If you poke the table, do you feel it? Yes. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to know how to smell or something, you just do.
Yeah, it just happens.
So make sure, if it's a mechanical process, like cook up cake, make sure you know the logistics of how to cook the cake.
Yeah, there are hundreds of YouTube videos on how to bake a cake.
But if it's something more intuitive, like smell, don't worry about the how. If it's something that your body naturally has done at some point in the past,
it'll do it again.
It'll do it again, and you don't need it. That's not your job to figure out the exact mechanical steps.
It's your body's job.
So here's a great exercise to demonstrate that. As I said, you learn a lot more through experience with this stuff. What I want you to do is go grab a pen or some small object, just any object. So a phone, a pen, a keys, whatever the object is, right? And what I want you to do is pick up that object. Okay, now wasn't that a revelatory experience right there, right? You picked up the object, and now you're like, well, okay, where's Danny going with this? But now what I want you to do is set the object back down, and I want you to pick it up. But before you do, I want you to consciously activate every single muscle that you need to, and move every single muscle and tell every single muscle where to go in order to pick up that object. Go. Now that's a lot harder than you think, right? Because you're going, Okay, now just pick up the object, right?
It's the same thing.
Yeah. There's a difference, but at the same time, you're doing the same action.
Yeah.
But there's a difference.
Yeah.
One is just do it. Yeah, you don't need to tell me how you did it. You just did it. The other is think about exactly how you need to do it. It's a lot harder to do that.
And that's what you're doing when you ask these questions. Is you're
trying to figure out exactly how to move each muscle instead of just doing it.
Yeah, you're trying to use reason and logic and thinking too much.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just it is more conducive to your mission to get out of defense mode if you just let your body do it.
Yeah. So anyway, if you still have assumptions about stuff, like if I get out of defense mode, then here's one that philosophical one I've been recently dealing with. If I feel happy and fulfilled all the time, then I won't have any motivation and I'll sit on the couch all day. Therefore, I want to delay my fulfillment to some other time. That's my assumption, right? But when you get to the other side and you just trust, you'll realize that no, I still have plenty of motivation. I was completely wrong.
Yeah, because what happens when you're a happy person and you love yourself? You're going to be more driven and do more things because you want the best for yourself.
Another one, I was talking to a client that said, I need to get a 3.2 GPA in order to get a good engineering job. And I go, how do you know that? He goes, one of my fellow students told me. I go, okay, so do we know this to be true, or is this some sort of just assumption that you heard on the street? He goes, nah, I actually don't have hard empirical data that this is a fact.
It's a rule. It's a rule he made from based in what this kid said.
Yeah, based on some assumptions. So what I want you to do is write out all those assumptions, then go through each assumption and really think, do I have hard data on this, or am I just assuming that this will happen? And then think through what would happen if that thing were to happen and how you would resolve it. So you have a contingency plan there too. Now, one more thing before we get to the building of safe places is that the brain tends to simulate, meaning think about what would happen about 10 times more intensely than actual reality. Everyone has experienced this when they've gone to get a shot. You're going to get a shot. Oh, this is the worst feeling in the world. I'm going to die. Oh my God, life is going to be over. Why would anyone do this? And then, okay, we're done. That's it.
See, that's a basic. I've struggled with crippling anxiety most of my life, and doing this, going through each assumption and thinking through what would happen if that thing were to happen and how you would resolve it. It actually helps me with my anxiety because it brings me around to the realization that it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Instead of just assuming that. Letting my fear and my assumptions take over instead of logically thinking about it.
The more you can bring it out of the shadowy darkness and vagueness into specificity, the less anxiety and fear you have about the thing, and you're more willing to do it.
So that's also a great anxiety destroying tool.
So going back to the experience simulating for a second, these things, we tend to think they're going to be so much more powerful than they are, like getting a shot, right? The actual getting a shot versus the thought of getting a shot. One's like 1,000 times worse. But this happens with everything. I mean, they've done studies where they ask people, if you won, $10 million, would you be happy? And they go, yeah. Would you be happy for a long time? Yeah. You look at people who actually have in the lottery, and they aren't that happy, and they haven't been that happy. I mean, everyone's like, oh my God, I won $1 million. But then about 2 weeks later, they're as happy as they normally are. And this works for bad things as well. You go to someone and say, if you cut off all your limbs, would you be unhappy? They go, yeah. And then you go to someone who has had major accidents. Sure, they're unhappy. Who wouldn't be? But it's not as bad as they think it would have been, and they aren't as unhappy. So we tend to think things are going to be a lot longer and a lot heavier in duration and a lot more intense than they actually are.